so that you can see the poem. Can you see the poem, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so just recapitulation. So let us start, since it's already 8 minutes past 11 a.m. Let me start. If anyone joins, then we will, of course, admit them. Uh, Now, you will remember that in our last class in college, we were, of course, it was the wife of Bath who was talking about her uh, fifth husband and how she came to marry him. That is Yankin, or Johnny, as he is called here, and how uh, they were they were sauntering in the field. So let me read from here, page number 274 in your text. I let him think I was as one enchanted. That was a trick my godmother implanted, and told him I had dreamt the night away thinking of him, and dreamt that as I lay he tried to kill me. Blood had drenched the bed. So here the wife of Bath says that uh, she had told Yankin, this young man, about a dream that she had had, and this dream involved the killing of herself by Yankin, and the fact that she saw that she was lying in a pool of blood in her bed, on her bed. So this image now, uh, this in the medieval times, blood signified riches, something that would accrue to someone. So this was the significance, so that she will become rich. But still, it was a lucky dream, I said, for blood betokens gold, as I recall. So she says here, Alison, that dreaming of this dream that she was lying in a pool of blood, it sort of, it has a symbolical significance that she would become rich. She would be having lots of gold. It was a lie. I hadn't dreamt at all. So actually, she is freely confessing that she had lied. This was a dream that she had never had. But in order to impress Yankin, she was telling him about this dream. And this was a lucky dream. It was from my godmother I learned my lore in matters such as that, and many more. So it was her godmother, and you will remember that her godmother's name was also Alison. So they shared the same name, and it was her godmother who had given her, uh, you know, had rather instructed her with all these uh, tricks. Well, let me see. What had I to explain? Aha, by God, I've got the thread again. So she was a bit, she was thinking of those times, and she lost the thread of the story. But now she says that, yeah, I have got it again. Let me tell you. When my fourth husband lay upon his bier, I wept all day and looked as drear as drear. So Now she is describing how her fourth husband had died, and he was going to be buried. As widows must, for it is quite in place, and with a handkerchief I hid my face. So she's saying that it is proper for, or it is rather customary for widows to shed tears when their husbands died, and therefore she was doing the same thing. She was sort of putting a handkerchief to her face. She was hiding her face in this handkerchief, though most probably she did not feel any kind of grief at her fourth husband's demise. Now that I felt provided with a mate, I wept but little, I need hardly state. So she is again confessing. She is a woman who almost she says the truth, that since I was assured that Yankin would be marrying me, I would not remain a widow for long, and so I did not weep much. So I did not state this to you. To church they bore my husband on the morrow, with all the neighbors round him venting sorrow. And one of them, of course, was handsome Johnny. So the next morning it was time for her fourth husband to be buried. And the people, the neighbors, they came and they took him to the churchyard to be buried. And one of them was handsome Johnny, that is Yankin. So help me God, I thought he looked so bonny behind the coffin. So the wife of Bath was quite impressed by her young companion, that is Johnny. Bonny means very good and very smart. Heavens, what a pair of legs he had! Such feet, so clean and fair. I gave my whole heart up for him to hold. So here you can see that she was charmed by his uh, appearance, by his legs, his shapely legs, and it was uh, again, for she had given up her heart to him. He was, I think, some 20 winters old, and I was 40 then, to tell the truth. But still I always had a coltish tooth. Yes, I am gap-toothed. It suits me well, I feel. It is the print of Venus and her seal. So she is saying that at this point of time, Yankin or Johnny was 20 years old and she was 40 years old. So you can note the age difference between them. But to tell the truth, as the wife of Bath says, I had a coltish tooth, meaning that she was a youngish kind of, she looked quite young. She did not look her age. She did not look like a 40-year-old woman. So, of course, that was to her advantage. And therefore, she is saying that though there was this difference of 40 years, sorry, I'm extremely sorry, not 40 years, but 20 years. So it was still a match. It is the print of Venus and her seal. Venus, you know, is the goddess of love. So gap-toothed. Gap-toothed, it means that she, her teeth was not very, cleanly or very well set. There were gaps between two teeth. So that's it. So that is what she looked like. And this, in the medieval times, if a woman was gap-toothed, then it was believed that she would be amorous and she would be very much kind of playful in nature. So help me God, I was a lusty one, fair, young, and well-to-do, and full of fun. So she describes herself in this way, that she was always looking for a new partner. And truly, as many husbands, as my husband said to me, I had the finest cronium that might be. For Venus sent me feeling from the stars, and my heart's boldness came to me from Mars. So here actually this is a reference to how she was sexually active, and her husbands, that is the previous husbands, they were impressed by her sexual prowess. And Venus, again the goddess of love, she sort of bestowed her favors on her. And you know that Mars was the god of war, the Roman god of war. So her boldness, her courage, the way she was always sort of coming forward, and this characteristic was attributed to her by Mars, that is the god of war. Venus gave me desire and lecherousness, and Mars my hardihood, or so I guess. Lecherousness, of course, are uh, kind of, she was prone to all these sexual activities. And hardihood, of course, you can understand her nature. It was she was a courageous woman, and she was not to be easily subdued by anyone. Born under Taurus and with Mars therein, alas, alas, that ever love was sin. So she is saying that I was born under the zodiac sign of Taurus, which is the bull, the sign of the bull. And of course, it again implies vigorousness, energy, and all that. So she says that why should loving and love considered to be considered as a sin? I ever followed natural inclination under the power of my constellation, and was unable to deny, in truth, my chamber of Venus to a likely youth. Now, she is again referring to all these, the fun that she had, and she was always ready to have some fun with a young man. The mark of Mars is still upon my face, and also in another privy place. So again, she's saying that I also bear the mark of Mars. For as I may be saved by God above, I never used discretion when in love, but ever followed on my appetite. So I never thought about restraining myself when it came to matters of love. So I was always quite playful in nature, and I sought new partners all the time, whether the lad was short, long, black, or white. So she says that she was not concerned about the looks or the height of the person, but she was always very playful. Little I cared if he was fond of me, how poor he was, or what his rank might be. So whether he was a wealthy person or a poor person, that did not matter to her. And whether he liked her, that was also not something that she was really concerned about. So you can understand the wife of Bath is a woman who is always, who was always looking for new partners. When her husbands died one by one, she was not prepared to live a life of celibacy or a single life without any kind of fun or entertainment. So this is the way she is describing herself to the pilgrims, and how she would come to marry this Johnny. What shall I say? Before the month was gone, this gay young student, my delightful John, had married me in solemn festival. So just see that her fourth husband had died, and it was not even 1 month. Not even 1 month had elapsed. But the wife of Bath married this Johnny, or John as she refers to him, uh, and it was a solemn ceremony, a serious ceremony, a wedding festival, where she married this young man. I handed him the money, lands and all, that ever had been given me before. Now, note one thing. You will remember that when she was speaking of her first three husbands, Alison had said that she married her first three husbands not for their, because they were old men. She did not love them. It was not for love, but only because they were very rich and they possessed lots of landed property. And she made them give up their, their property and wealth to her. Now, in the case of the fourth husband, that was also perhaps the criterion, but she was not as rich as the first three old husbands. But this person, Yankin or Johnny or John, now you will see that the wife of Bath has done a very unusual thing for her. She handed him the money, lands and all, that she is saying plainly. Now, everything that she had got from her previous husbands, she was giving up. This I repented later more and more. Now she says that she was so enchanted with him. She was, in fact, very much, you can say, in love with him, or she liked him so much that she gave all her wealth and her land to this person. But later on, she repented of this, that she should not have done this. None of my pleasures would he let me seek. Now, what kind of a man was this John or Johnny? After their marriage, she saw that Johnny was a very difficult kind of a man, since she did not allow her to go out to sort of entertain herself. By God, he smote me once upon the cheek. So just you can see how this person, that is Johnny, he uh, he was a kind of a violent kind of a man, and he hit her on the cheek because I tore a page out of his book. Now, what was the reason why Johnny beat her up? The reason was she had torn a page out of his book, and that's the reason why I am deaf. Now, if you read the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, and you read the description of the wife of Bath, you will find that Chaucer has described her as gap-toothed, which she mentioned, and that she was somewhat deaf in her left ear, most probably. And that was a pity. That is what Chaucer comments. So, this is the reason, or this is the cause why she was deaf in 1 year, because this Johnny had hit her on the ear, and that made her deaf. But look, stubborn I was, just like a lioness. As to my tongue, a very wrangleress. So she's saying that though Johnny beat me, I was as stubborn or as doughty or courageous like a lioness. And as to my tongue, a very wrangler is. Wrangling means to quarrel and always find fault, to bicker and all that. I went off gadding as I had before, from house to house, however much he sore. But this did not prevent her from roaming about from one house to another, from visiting her neighbors' houses. She continued to do that. Though Johnny was extremely angry and he was swearing. Because of that, he used to preach and scold, drag Roman history up from days of old. So Johnny took a different tack altogether. Now, what did he start to do? He told her about different people, different women who were evil women, and they belonged to Roman history. And she was given instructions as how she should behave. So Alison is saying here that Johnny was always reading from that book the accounts of different Roman tales about wives and husbands. Now, the first person about whom Johnny told her about how one Simplicius Gallus left his wife, deserting her completely all his life, only for poking out her head one day without a hat upon the public way. So this person, whose name was Simplicius Gallus, now he abandoned his wife. And what was the wife's mistake? Or what did she do? What had she done? She had come out, or she had actually poked her head out of the window, perhaps, or her door, without covering herself, without wearing a proper cover or a hat, as it is mentioned here. And that was considered to be something that was not practiced by the wives. And so this person became angry with his wife, and he just uh, abandoned her. Some other Roman, I forget his name, because his wife went to a summer's game without his knowledge, left her in the lurch. And again, uh, Johnny gives a second example where you can see that he is mentioning this particular person called, it is not a particular person, uh, no name is given as such, an individual, a Roman individual, and he did the same thing like Simplicius Gallus, that since his wife had gone to a summer's game, she had gone to watch a game in the in the summer month, and she had not taken his permission. She had not taken his permission, presumably, and that is why uh, her husband abandoned her. So Johnny was giving all these examples that you are going out. He was telling Alison that you are going out without my permission. Look what happened to these wives who did not listen to their husbands. So I think up till now you have understood what the wife of Bath is saying. She is going to give a number of examples now from Roman history, which of course she is saying that Johnny had given, because he was an Oxford scholar. You will remember he was a student at Oxford, and he was well educated, and therefore he knew about all these stories. Now let us read the next portion of the poem. Some other woman, yes, we have read that, and he would take the Bible up and search. Bible up and search for proverbs in Ecclesiasticus, particularly one that has it thus. So what would Johnny do? He would uh, he would search in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes or Ecclesiasticus. Suffer no wicked woman to gad about, and then would come the saying, need you doubt. A man who seeks to build his house of sallows, a man who spurs a blind horse over fallows, or lets his wife make pilgrimage to Hallows, is worthy to be hanged upon the gallows. So this is a short 4-line poem. So Johnny used to say to her that it is written in the Bible that no wicked woman should be allowed to gad about. That is, she should not be allowed to move about here and there outside the house, go to her neighbors' houses. And for certain, what would happen to a man if he allowed his wife to do this? A man who seeks to build his house of sallows. So sallows, uh, of course, if he tries to build his house with reeds, sallows means the soft, you know, reeds in the kind of some soft reeds which grow beside the river, and which are uh, not at all suitable for building strong houses. So it is a kind of a willow tree. The branches of the willow tree, actually they are not suitable for making of houses. So that house uh, will not survive. A man who spurs a blind horse over fallows. So a blind horse would not be able to see where it is going. So a fallow land, fallows here means a fallow land which will not yield anything. So no crop would be growing there, and that would be completely useless to plow a fallow land with a horse, blind horse. Or lets his wife make pilgrimage to Hallows. Now, Hallows actually it means it is an archaic way of referring to the relics or the remains of a saint, or the shrines where they were kept. So you can relate this particular word to the fact that the pilgrims, they were all going to the shrine of Saint Thomas a Becket in Canterbury. So they were going to the Hallows. They were going on a pilgrimage. So if a man let his wife uh, or sorry, if a man let rather builds his house with soft reeds which are useless, or if he allows his horse to run over a fallow land, or he tries to plow a fallow land, or he lets his wife go on pilgrimages to visit the relics of saints, then what would happen to him? Is worthy to be hanged upon the gallows. So he would be hanged. So that would be the end of him. But all for naught. I didn't give a hen for all his proverbs and his wise old men. So she's saying, Alison is saying here, I did not at all heed what he was trying to say and the proverbs of the old men. Nor would I take rebuke at any price. I hate a man who points me out my vice, and so, God knows, do many more than I. So she's saying that I did not want to be rebuked or scolded, not at any price, by no means. And I always hated someone, any person who sort of pointed out my weak points or my vices, my negative qualities. And God knows it is not only me, but many women are like this. They hate to be faulted, or they hate to be uh, told about their faults or vices. And so God knows, do many more than I. That drove him raging mad, you may rely, nor more would I forbear him, I can promise. So she is saying that this was the reason why he became extremely angry with me. He was almost mad with rage. And no more would I forbear him, I can promise. So she is saying that I am not going to uh, sort of give him any allowance, uh, to refrain from doing uh, what she was doing and to heed him. So she was not going to listen to him. Let him rant away and let him become angry. Now let me tell you truly by St. Thomas about that book and why I tore the page, and how he smote me deaf in very rage. So she now takes the name of St. Thomas, and she is going to tell the pilgrims what was the reason why Johnny became angry and smote him on the ear. He had a book, he kept it on his shelf, and night and day he read it to himself and laughed aloud, although it was quite serious. So, this was a book which Johnny uh, read constantly, and he was pretty amused or entertained by this book because he used to laugh aloud. He called it Theophrastus and Valerius. So he referred to it as this, Theophrastus and Valerius. There was another Roman, much the same, a cardinal, Saint Jerome was his name. He wrote a book against Jovinian, bound up together with Tertullian. Chrysippus, Trotula, and Helois. So all these stories were sort of, they were in fact related. They were uh, told in that book. And you will find here a number of names, of these people, references to Roman history. An abbess lived near Paris. So this is about Heloise. And with these were bound the parables of Solomon, with Ovid's Art of Love, another one. So Ovid's, you have read book 3 of Ovid's Metamorphoses, but Ovid had also written another book called The Art of Love, Ars Amatoria. That is the Latin name of that book. So everything was there in that big fat book which Johnny loved to read. All these were bound together in one book. So all the stories about these people, uh, Tertullian, Chrysippus, Trotula, Eloise, Saint Jerome's criticism of Jovinian, all these were bound up in one volume, and it was a pretty thick volume. And day and night he used to take a look at what it said when he had time and leisure, or had no occupation but his pleasure, which was to read this book of wicked wives. He knew more legends of them and their lives than there are good ones mentioned in the Bible. So here you can see that uh, this book was extremely valuable or useful for him. And this book contains stories about wicked wives. And Johnny was really entertained when he read the stories again and again. And Allison is saying that the tale of the wicked wives that were mentioned in this book, they actually were far greater in number than the stories about good wives that are mentioned in the Bible. For take my word for it, there is no libel on women that the clergy will not paint, except when writing of a woman saint. So she says that the clergy, that is the church fathers, they would always love to depict the vices of women, and only they will praise a woman if she is a saint, a female saint, that is. Otherwise, they will continue to uh, criticize the women, but never good of other women though. So they will not be speaking anything good about other women. Who called the land savage? Do you know? So she is asking a rhetorical question here. A rhetorical question is one that has its own answer. In the question itself, anyone can find the answer. That is, the answer would be yes. Who called the lion savage? So obviously it was the hunter who called the lion savage, and he killed the lion. My God, if women had but written stories like those the clergy kept in oratories, more had been written of man's wickedness than all the sons of Adam could redress. But she is putting forth a new argument. The fact that if women had been allowed to write about uh, the wickedness of men, the wicked activities, evil activities of men, then of course that would far surpass any account of evil women. So the clergy who kept records of religious ceremonies would, of course, find that the evil deeds of men were far greater in number. So all the sons of Adam could redress. There is no man, son of Adam, of course, means uh, no man would be able to sort of redress this situation, the stories or the activities of these evil persons. Children of Mercury and we of Venus keep up the contrariety between us. Mercury stands for wisdom, thrift, and science. Venus for revel, squandering, and defiance. So there are two different types of people, actually children of Mercury who value knowledge, and the children of Venus, to which category the wife of Bath belongs. And there is a contrast between the two persons. So Venus actually, of course, the goddess of love, and she would stand for all kinds of revelry and defiance of the rules. Their several natures govern their directions. One rises when the others in description. So we can see that the wife of Bath here is talking about the different natures, and she is referring to the fact that one can fairly well see that the way they perform, of course, uh, it gives a kind of a direction how they would function. One rises when the others in dejection. And one rises when the others in dejection. So a quality which goes up has its corresponding quality which and we can see here again this description. Now I think I will stop here today, and we will continue with this poem in our next class. Hopefully you have sort of understood what we have been discussing here, and I would rather ask if you have any question, you may ask me, and then we can discuss the little time we have, about 5 to 6 minutes left for the end of the class.